You will find all kinds of excuses developed, but very frankly, the same excuses you're going to hear from Republicans are the excuses we heard for 12 years that resulted in $4 trillion in debt. If we can begin to reduce this deficit, we can free up capital, we can face a future in which we can restore resources and provide a better life for our children. That's the question people are going to have to face.
Mr. Chairman?
I agree with Leon emphatically. I think that there are no easy choices to be made. We've taken 12 years to get into this posture, and it's going to take tough decisions and leadership, and I think we've got a young man in the White House that is providing leadership. If it's not popular, that's just the medicine ball that we have to swallow. But the American people want us to do something, and I think that you're going to see the chemistry in the House of Representatives and ultimately in the Senate displayed by the membership that are going to make the tough decisions.
All right, some new economic figures came out this week that suggest inflation may be at least rearing its ugly head, at least peeking around the corner. Mr. Chairman, do you think the Federal Reserve ought to consider raising interest rates to make sure that inflation doesn't go up again?
Bob, that's a decision that they're going to have to make at the Federal Reserve. I don't know, but I do know that we're going to have to focus in on what's necessary in the legislative process. I think that, if we're going to continue to legislate by polls that are taken every day, I think you'll never see us do anything in the Congress, nor will we see a president signing a bill. I just think that we've got to muscle down and do what's right. And I think passing this budget deficit reduction package, there's $47 to $50 billion in cuts that we've made. That's a big piece of this action, and I just think that we're going to do it.
Quickly, Mr. Panetta, you do want to send a message to the Federal Reserve today. What would you like to see happen on interest rates?
I think the focus always has to be on the long term. The President of the United States is focused on the long term. Let's not just play with day-to-day statistics because those can change from week to week. Let's keep our eye on the main target, and that's reducing the deficit.
So let's not raise interest rates.
I think we ought to stay a steady course.
Mr. Panetta, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being with us this morning. We'll have a roundtable discussion when we come back.
Word on the street was they were a bad bet. An American institution, 3 days shy of extinction. Only one investment firm, Dean Witter, saw past the problems to the real value of the company. And a rumble was heard round Wall Street as the last American motorcycle company came roaring back to life with a listing on the New York Stock Exchange. From Main Street to Wall Street, at Dean Witter.
We measure success one investor at a time.
If we had our way, no baby in this nation would ever be born too little to live or addicted to crack. Every toddler would be immunized against deadly disease, and no child would ever suffer a preventable injury. At Johnson & Johnson, our commitment to America's health goes beyond the products we make to include our active support of programs like these, so babies can get the healthy start on life that they deserve, and disadvantaged kids can get a head start, and parents can protect their children from accidents. America needs a healthcare system that invests in its future, one that emphasizes prevention and encourages individual responsibility. And it all begins here, with the children. At Johnson & Johnson, we believe keep the children well, and you can heal a nation.
Dean Witter believed every success story was unique.
We have a sacred trust to protect our investors,
Whether it's the success of a small business,
to maintain conservative policies,
saving for college,
to put the interest of our clients first.
or planning an early retirement. From getting in on the ground floor to getting all the way to the top, Dean Witter is there to help every client make it every step of the way. Dean Witter.
We measure success one investor at a time.
You watched a compound go up in flames. Now one of the people who actually survived tells us what went on behind the walls at Waco. Tomorrow on CBS This Morning with Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
And now we get some differing views on the week from Bill Kristol, the former Chief of Staff to Vice President Quayle, now a conservative activist and theorist. Frank Greer, who's the Democratic media consultant who advised the president during his campaign. and Michael Frisby, the White House correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. I must say, Michael, you wrote an article at the beginning of the week that sort of became the conventional wisdom in Washington, at least in the beginning of the week, and it was that President Clinton is going down in the polls, and basically you said he's losing his clout, that the idea was going around he could be rolled.
Yeah, well, Bob,
is that still the wisdom at the end of the week?
yeah, well, the big surprise here is that he is being manhandled by Capitol Hill. His tax bill made it out of committee, but it was filled with special interest concessions. His allies are sitting back saying, where's the fighting Bill Clinton that was elected? The Democrats are wondering, where's this feisty guy? They expected to bring change in the country. And his solution is to take his show to the road and get out of Washington for a little while. Well, I think that his allies wish he stayed in Washington and learned a little more about how the city works and how to get his program through up there.
Is that going to work, Mr. Crystal?
Well, I don't think all the PR trips out of Washington are going to change the fundamental situation, which is that he's the president who's defined himself in his first 4 months as being for higher taxes and believing that somehow a huge tax hike is going to make America more competitive. It was fun watching Leon Panetta and Danny Rostenkowski, two of President Clinton's main lieutenants, argue about which taxes they should impose on the American economy. They each love taxes so much. They try to outdo each other in supporting different taxes. I don't think that's going to be good for the economy, and it's not going to be good for Bill Clinton politically.
Well, Frank, I suspect you disagree.
I do disagree. I think the president had a very good week. I think part of it was that he did take his case outside of Washington. You know, Bob, Washington has just become a cesspool of cynicism and criticism, and I think going out to the American people is a very good thing to do. What he's fighting for is their future. And out there beyond the Beltway, people are very concerned about their incomes going down, about whether they can provide health care for their families. Those are the issues that I think really motivate the American people. If he gets back to those issues, and including ending trickle-down economics and bringing about some tax fairness, making the wealthy pay their fair share, then I think the American people are going to be very supportive of that.
Well, how did it kind of get to this? Because I don't think anybody would disagree that the president's hit some pretty hard bumps in the road here. And then when someone like Michael Frisby writes an article like he did, that the word's going around he can be rolled, what happened?
Well, actually, I believe that after our initial launching of the economic plan, we got distracted, and we did not have a plan to take the message beyond just those first 2 or 3 weeks. I think Bill Clinton is back on message. He's going to the American people with a plan to really turn the economy around, raise incomes, put people back to work, and that is really the message that he ran on. It's the message I think that the American people are going to support.
Well, what happened, Bob, is that people saw through the rhetoric, which carried Clinton for a couple of weeks. They saw through Frank Greer's effective PR advice, and they took a look at the economic plan. And the plan is for more taxes and more spending. When Leon Panetta said earlier that every sacred cow had been attacked in the budget, that's really laughable once people start to look at the budget. The Clinton budget is like a giant pasture full of sacred cows, cheerfully mooing and contentedly munching at the federal taxpayers' expense.
Well, I congratulate you on using a metaphor that has not yet been used.
This is amazing from a crowd that's been in charge for 12 years, and they quadrupled the national debt. They did it by giving tax breaks to millionaires, raising taxes on the middle class, and basically they drove this economy in the ground as well. So now, finally, people in this country voted for a change. They voted for a new economic policy, moving away from trickle-down economics to invest and grow economics. And I think if we get back to that debate, that the American people are going to support Bill Clinton.
Let me just shift the subject slightly. There was a lot of talk, Senator Nunn held hearings on this whole question of whether to lift the ban on gays in the military this week. There are those who would say that perhaps because the president seemed to place so much emphasis on that in the very beginning, that in fact that may have thrown this administration a little bit out of focus, that perhaps he didn't mean it that way, regardless of the right or wrong of that particular issue. It dominated the headlines so much that it sort of threw the whole thing off track in the beginning. Did that have anything to do with it, Michael?
Well, I think it had a big impact, Bob. The problem with Bill Clinton is he spent last year defining himself as a moderate Democrat, a new Democrat. He allowed the gays in the military issue. He allowed a lot of other liberal issues to come onto his agenda, the stimulus package, which went down. And now he's a tax and spend Democrat to everybody. He's got to change that again. He's got to refocus. He's having trouble doing that. He's talking about refocusing, but he's talked about 11, 12 different programs in the last week or two.
Let me also ask you about something else that keeps coming up, and that is a person who keeps coming up, Ross Perot. What do you make of Ross Perot right now, Bill Crystal?
Well, I think, unfortunately, he's a powerful force in American politics. I mean, I think he's powerful because no one's taking him on. You know, what he said
What do you
last-
mean? The media should tell what?
Well, the media can't ultimately bring down someone like Perot. I think other politicians need to stand up and say this man is fundamentally irresponsible. When he says that George Bush went to war in the Persian Gulf to retrieve his public opinion standing after the budget deal, or that Bill Clinton is considering using force in Bosnia and starting a little war to retrieve himself from his domestic policy failures, and I'm no fan of using force in Bosnia. Still, that charge is a grave charge, and he should back it up or he should be forced to retract it. And I wish more politicians on our side, as well as on Frank's, would just take on Ross Perot. I think he's getting a free ride. There are a lot of people out there who are frustrated and who see in him a kind of spokesman for their frustration. But I think he should be discredited. And I think there'll be a big reward, frankly, for a courageous politician who stands up and says that the kinds of things Ross Perot has been saying are not just irresponsible, but I mean, they really are irresponsible.
Should Bill Clinton say that?
I actually don't think it's the role of the president. I think the president needs to be concentrating on his message right now. But I've got to tell you that I think that Ross Perot is going to come under a lot more scrutiny. They're going to look behind these neat little sound bites that he always uses, and they're going to say, where's the real substance here, and is he a responsible force in American politics? I think he's been very irresponsible over the last few weeks. So I think that's going to fade. The interesting thing is I think the Perot voters are the people we're really concerned about in this country, and they're people who voted to break the gridlock in Washington, and I think the president is trying to do that. What's happened is a small minority of Republican senators have blocked the will of the people in this country. And I think you need to keep making that point, and when you do, ultimately, as on the voter registration bill, they actually tried to block a bill to make it easier to register to vote. But we overcame their threat of a filibuster. And I think when you talk about the national good being more important than this minority in the Senate, you're going to break the gridlock. Perot voters will respond to that.
All right, let me ask you about the Texas Senate race. It's coming up in the first part of June. Should that be taken as a referendum on Bill Clinton's presidency because you have Kruger, the Democrat, who seems to be running behind in the polls to Kay Bailey Hutchison, who is a pro-choice Republican. Michael, what do you make of
Bob, I think what the Democrats have here is a pretty poor candidate right now. He chose not to back Bill Clinton's agenda, and now he's paying for it. He's having a hard time rallying the Democratic constituency. It's going to be a hard uphill battle for
10
him.
seconds to each of you. We're just out of time.
Right. Democrats around the country are running away from Bill Clinton's agenda because
Wasn't
they see
true.
it's politically damaging.
They tried to make it a referendum in the Wisconsin congressional race, and Bill Clinton won there. This race in Texas is not a referendum on Bill Clinton's economic
All right, we have to leave it there. We are out of time. I want to say thanks to both of you, all three of you, for being with us, the two political consultants and the reporter, the independent member of this panel from the Wall Street Journal. Later on CBS Sunday Evening News, Edie Magnus will have the latest on the referendum in Bosnia and the rest of the day's news. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next week on Face the Nation.
Corn. Not only is it America's most abundant crop, it's also the most versatile. At the Archer Daniels Midland Company, we get golden corn oil from it, as well as corn sweeteners, ethanol, and protein products used in animal feeds. Today, we're extracting even more sophisticated value-added products from corn. Products such as citric acid, which gives candies and fruit-flavored beverages their tangy flavor. And lysine, an amino acid that optimizes the nutrition of poultry and swine feeds. But even this list is far from complete. Right now, we're developing additional value-added products from corn, along with innovative applications for them. Because at ADM, we believe the potential of this crop is nearly as great as its supply. ADM, supermarket to the world.
This portion of Face the Nation was sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, supermarket to the world, and by Dean Witter. There are many ways to measure success. Dean Witter measures success one investor at a time. This broadcast was produced by CBS News, which is solely responsible for the selection of today's guests and
it will not be counted. The ballot is taking place in various counties across the state, but for some obscure reason, voter turnout, even when it's only a walk to the mailbox, remains low. In a check with elections offices in the Portland metro area, only 33 to 37% of the mail ballots sent out had been returned. If that seems low, then understand that at best your election registrar is looking forward to only 45 to 50% return. What's scary about all this is that so few seem to care that major issues turn on the outcome of this ballot. In Multnomah County alone, the future of the library system and Inverness Jail are pegged to voter response to the mail ballot. So is the future of Beaverton School District and Washington County's road maintenance, and so it goes. Once again, a minority will decide the outcome of vital issues. On the other hand, you could change all that by digging out that ballot and driving it to the registrar's office and join the silent majority instead of simply watching the vocal minority. I'm Rick Myers.
If you would like to respond to this editorial, write feedback, KATU, Post Office Box 2, Portland, Oregon, 97207.